Welcome to the shadowed corridors of magical history, where mystery intertwines with menace. For centuries, the unforgivable curses, Avada Kedavra, Crucio, and Imperio, have loomed like dark clouds over the wizarding world, feared for their unparalleled power and harrowing implications. But where did these curses come from? Who dared to craft such monstrous spells? And what does their existence tell us about the nature of magic itself? Today, we delve deep into the origins of these notorious incantations, peeling back the layers of history and intent that shape them into tools of terror. Before we begin, let us reflect on a universal truth about magic. It is neither inherently good nor evil. Spells are merely conduits of intention, shaped by the caster's desires and will. The unforgivable curses stand as stark reminders of this fact. They are not evil because of their incantations or wand movements, but because of the intent they channel, to dominate, to torment, to kill. Their creation, then, is not the result of a single moment of malevolence, but a reflection of humanity's darker impulses, crystallized through magic. To truly understand where these curses originated, we must journey to the ancient roots of wizarding civilization, where the boundaries of morality and magic were far more fluid. In the earliest days of magical society, long before the establishment of the Ministry of Magic, Hogwarts, or even wand law, magic was raw and untamed. Wizards and witches wielded their powers instinctively, often without understanding the consequences of their actions. Historical accounts from this time are scarce, but fragments of ancient runic texts and oral traditions hint at a period when magic was as much a tool for survival as it was for creation. It was in this primal era, many scholars believe, that the seeds of the unforgivable curses were first sown. Consider Avada Kedavra, the killing curse. Its origins are thought to lie in early attempts at healing magic. Yes, healing. The Aramaic root of the spell, abracadabra, was once part of a charm believed to cure disease by banishing harmful spirits. Over time, however, its intent was corrupted. Wizards who sought to rid themselves of threats, whether human or otherwise, twisted this tragic irony that a spell meant to heal became the ultimate weapon of destruction, encapsulates the dual-edged nature of magic. The Cruciatus curse, by contrast, emerges from a different tradition entirely, that of magical punishment. In the ancient courts of wizarding communities, justice was often harsh, and spells designed to extract confessions or administer retribution were common. The Cruciatus curse likely evolved from these practices, a perverse refinement of pain-inducing charms meant to enforce order. But while its origins may have been tied to justice, the curse quickly became a tool of cruelty, wielded not to uphold laws, but to break spirits. Imperio, the most insidious of the three, finds its roots in early experiments with mind magic. Wizards have always been fascinated by the idea of control over their environment, over nature, and inevitably over one another. The Imperious curse likely developed from primitive attempts at legilimency, the art of reading minds. What began as a means of understanding others was warped into a spell of domination, stripping victims of their autonomy and reducing them to mere puppets. These dark spells were not named unforgivable in their infancy. For centuries, they were seen as powerful, albeit controversial tools, neither good nor bad, simply effective. It was only as magical society evolved, as ethics began to shape the practice of magic, that their true nature was recognized. The designation of the unforgivable curses came much later, a direct result of the devastation they caused in the hands of those who sought power above all else. But what does their origin tell us about the nature of magic itself? Is magic inherently prone to corruption, or is it merely a mirror reflecting the hearts of those who wield it? These are questions we will explore further as we continue our journey into the dark history of the unforgivable curses. As magical society advanced, so too did its understanding of magic's moral boundaries. The transition from raw instinctual spellcasting to structured intentional magic occurred over centuries, with many spells evolving alongside the values, or lack thereof, of the wizards who crafted them. The unforgivable curses were no exception to this transformation. By the time they became tools of deliberate malevolence, they had already passed through a long and complex process of experimentation, trial, and, tragically, abuse. Let's turn first to the killing curse, Avada Kedavra, a spell that came to symbolize ultimate power. and ultimate transgression. While its earliest uses, as mentioned earlier, were tied to healing rituals, the spell's lethality eventually overshadowed its origins. How did this happen? Some wizarding historians believe that the shift occurred during an era of magical warfare, where rival wizarding clans fought brutal battles for dominance. At a time when combat magic was unsophisticated and often messy, Avada Kedavra became a spell of choice. Its clean efficiency, one incantation, one death, made it a weapon of unrivaled terror. This deadly innovation coincided with the rise of a dangerous philosophy, the belief that certain lives held less value than others. Early dark wizards, such as Herpo the Foul, who is best known for creating the first basilisk, were fascinated by the idea of supremacy, of bending nature, creatures, and even other wizards to their will. Herpo himself is rumored to have perfected Avada Kedavra, refining it into the curse we recognize today. Unlike other forms of combat magic, which required intense focus or immense magical power, Avada Kedavra demanded only one thing: intent. The caster had to truly mean it, to desire death without hesitation or remorse. In this way, the spell became more than just a magical weapon. It became a reflection of the caster's soul. The Cruciatus Curse underwent a similar dark evolution. While its roots lie in punishment and interrogation, its transition into an instrument of torture speaks volumes about how magic adapts to the needs, or rather the desires, of its user. In ancient times, curses designed to inflict pain were often justified under the guise of extracting confessions or enforcing loyalty. But as magical duels and political power struggles grew more ruthless, wizards discovered that pain could serve another, far more sinister purpose: breaking a person's will. It was during this period that the Cruciatus Curse reached its most twisted form. The spell was no longer about justice, but about domination, about asserting control over another through sheer agony. The psychological scars it left behind were often deeper than the physical pain, rendering its victims shadows of their former selves. And yet, like all curses, its power lay in the intent of the caster. The Cruciatus Curse could only be performed by someone who truly delighted in causing pain, making it one of the darkest expressions of magic imaginable. Then there is Imperio, the Curse of Control. Unlike Avada Kedavra and Crucio, which thrived in open conflict, Imperio's history is steeped in subtler, more insidious origins. Early mind magic, legilimency, occlumency, and various charm-based manipulations was developed as a means of understanding, not controlling, the human mind. Ancient wizards used these techniques to share memories, communicate telepathically, and even aid in therapy for mental trauma. However, as with all magic, what began as a tool for enlightenment was soon corrupted. The Imperious Curse likely arose during an era when wizards sought to dominate their rivals not through violence but through subterfuge. The ability to strip another of their free will, to force them to act against their nature, was a kind of power too tempting to resist. In fact, some scholars argue that Imperia's earliest practitioners viewed the spell as a form of mercy, believing it more humane to bend a person to their will than to kill them outright. Of course, this justification did nothing to lessen the moral depravity of the act. Whether used for convenience or cruelty, the Imperious Curse robbed its victims of their very humanity, reducing them to mere tools of their oppressors. Over time, these three curses became synonymous with the darkest corners of wizarding history. Their use marked the rise of figures like Herpo the Foul and later Grindelwald and Voldemort, wizards who sought to use the Unforgivable Curses to cement their reigns of terror. However, the full impact of these spells extends far beyond the acts of a few dark wizards. Their existence forced the magical community to confront uncomfortable truths about the nature of magic and of themselves. When the Unforgivable Curses were finally named and outlawed, it was not simply an act of legislation, but a profound moral reckoning. Declaring these spells unforgivable was not just a statement about their effects, but about the values of the wizarding world. By naming them as such, the magical community acknowledged that some acts of magic crossed an unthinkable line, a line that, once crossed, could never be undone. But was this decision truly about morality, or was it about fear? After all, magic does not create intent, it only amplifies it. By outlawing these curses, did the wizarding world seek to deny its darker impulses? or did it simply attempt to suppress them? These are questions we must ponder as we consider the legacy of the Unforgivable Curses. The classification of Avada Kedavra, Crucio, and Imperio as unforgivable curses marked a turning point in magical history. For the first time, Wizarding Society formally acknowledged that some forms of magic were too dangerous, too corrupting to be permitted, even in times of desperation or war. But labeling these spells as unforgivable was not merely a legal distinction. It was a moral pronouncement, an attempt to draw a clear boundary between right and wrong in a world where such lines are often blurred by the complexities of intent and circumstance. This decision, however, was not without its controversies. Many historians argue that the classification of these curses was as much a political move as a moral one. The decree outlawing the Unforgivable Curses came during a time when the wizarding world was striving for unity in the aftermath of numerous conflicts. By denouncing these particular spells, the magical community sought to distance itself from the horrors of its past and project an image of civility and restraint. Yet for all the laws and proclamations, the Unforgivable Curses persisted in the shadows, a grim reminder that human nature is not so easily tamed. One of the most unsettling aspects of the Unforgivable Curses is their simplicity. Unlike many advanced spells which require intricate wand movements or complex incantations, the Unforgivable Curses are shockingly straightforward. Avada Kedavra, for example, requires only a clear intent to kill and a sufficient amount of magical power. This simplicity has led many to speculate that the spells are in some sense primal, echoes of an older, darker form of magic that predates modern spellwork. Indeed, the very nature of these curses raises profound questions about the relationship between magic and morality. If a spell like Avada Kedavra requires nothing more than intent, does that mean the capacity for darkness resides in every witch and wizard? Are the Unforgivable Curses a manifestation of humanity's worst instincts, given form through magic? Or do they reflect something even more unsettling? The idea that magic, for all its wonder, has no moral compass of its own. The role of the Unforgivable Curses in wizarding history also reveals much about the ways in which power can corrupt. Consider Voldemort, whose mastery of these spells became a defining feature of his rise to infamy. For Voldemort, the Unforgivable Curses were not merely tools, but symbols of his dominance over others. He used Avada Kedavra to eliminate those who opposed him, Crucio to break the spirits of his enemies, and Imperio to turn even the most loyal individuals into pawns. In doing so, he demonstrated the ultimate danger of these curses, their ability to strip away humanity, not only from the victim, but also from the caster. But the use of the Unforgivable Curses has not been limited to dark wizards like Voldemort. Even those who fight for justice have at times resorted to these spells. During the First and Second Wizarding Wars, members of the Order of the Phoenix and other resistance groups occasionally employed the curses in desperate circumstances. Auras, who are trained to uphold the law, were once given special permission to use the Unforgivable Curses during times of great peril. This uncomfortable reality underscores the moral complexity of these spells. Are they truly unforgivable if used in the service of good? Or does their very existence taint those who dare to cast them, no matter the reason? The psychological toll of using the Unforgivable Curses is another aspect that cannot be ignored. In the rare instances where good characters have employed these spells, the impact on their conscience is profound. Take Harry Potter himself, who used the Cruciatus Curse on Amicus Caro in the heat of battle. Though Harry's actions were driven by anger and a sense of justice, this moment reveals just how easy it is to cross the line when faced with extreme circumstances. The guilt and self-reflection that follow such actions serve as a stark reminder that these spells demand a heavy price, not just from their victims, but from their casters as well. There is also the matter of the curse's lasting effects on their victims. The Cruciatus Curse, for instance, has been shown to cause permanent psychological damage, as seen in the tragic case of Alice and Frank Longbottom. The Imperius Curse, while less visibly destructive, leaves its victims profoundly violated, their very will stripped away. And Avada Kedavra, the most final of the three, robs families and communities of their loved ones, leaving behind a legacy of grief and loss. Yet even in the face of such devastation, the Unforgivable Curses retain an almost mythic allure. They are symbols of ultimate power, forbidden knowledge, and the darker side of human nature. This allure is perhaps most evident in the way they are treated in magical education. At Hogwarts, for example, the curses are taught to older students, not as spells to be used, but as lessons in the dangers of unchecked ambition and the ethical responsibilities that come with wielding magic. And so it is. This approach reflects a broader truth about the unforgivable curses. They are not merely a warning about the dangers of magic, but a mirror, forcing wizards and witches to confront their own capacity for cruelty and control. In the end, the origins of the unforgivable curses remind us that magic is, at its core, a reflection of the human spirit. These spells were not created in a vacuum. They are the product of centuries of fear, ambition, and the quest for power. While the wizarding world may have declared them unforgivable, their existence continues to challenge the boundaries of morality, forcing us to ask difficult questions about the nature of good and evil, the weight of intent, and the choices that define us. Neophobia. The unforgivable curses may be ancient, but their lessons remain as relevant as ever. They are a testament to the darkest corners of wizarding history, and a reminder that even in a world of magic, the greatest battles are fought not with wands, but within ourselves.